The year was 539 BCE, and Babylon still shone like a jewel of the ancient world. Its walls, taller than 30 men, glowed gold in the desert sun. The Euphrates River ran through its heart, bringing life and pride to the empire that believed itself eternal. King Nabonidus stood on his balcony, staring down at the city. "The gods have favored me," he said. "No army can breach these walls." His words carried arrogance and fear. The people of Babylon worshipped hundreds of gods, Marduk, Ishtar, Nabu, believing their blessings made the empire immortal. Yet deep inside the temples, the priests whispered of omens, stars falling, fires in the sky, and a foreign army marching closer. Inside the temple of Marduk, the air was thick with incense. The old priest Nabusharuzer knelt before the golden statue of the god. "O great Marduk," he whispered, "protect your city from the Persians." From behind him, an old man spoke, Belshazzar, the Hebrew exile known for his wisdom. "No god of gold or stone can save what has defied the living God," he said softly. The priest turned, anger flashing in his eyes. "You dare speak blasphemy in the house of Marduk?" Belteshazzar replied calmly, "The walls of Babylon are high, but pride is higher, and both shall fall." Outside, drums echoed from the west. Scouts rushed to the palace. Cyrus the Great's army had reached the banks of the Euphrates. "Let them come," said King Nabonidus with a laugh. "We have food for years, water from the river, and walls no man can climb." But the laughter did not reach his eyes. That night, the city shone bright under torches and music, a festival of arrogance. Wine flowed, and golden idols were paraded through the streets. In the palace, the king's son Belshazzar held a grand feast for 1,000 nobles. He ordered sacred cups stolen from the Temple of Jerusalem to be filled with wine. "Let us drink to the gods of gold and silver," he cried. But as he lifted the cup, the music stopped. A hand, glowing like fire, appeared on the wall, writing words in a strange script. "Emiani, Emiani, Tekel, Parson." The hall froze. The king's knees trembled. "What does it mean?" he shouted. Belteshazzar, the old exile, was brought to interpret. "It means your kingdom is numbered and finished. You have been weighed in the balance and found wanting. Your empire will be divided." Outside, the moon shone over the silent river. In the distance, the Persians were already moving, unseen, unstoppable. Babylon's pride had been warned. Its fall had begun. Far beyond the shining walls, the Persian camp burned with torchlight. King Cyrus the Great stood before his generals, staring toward the massive city that seemed untouchable. "Babylon," he said quietly, "a fortress of stone built on pride. But no fortress stands forever." His commander Gobryas stepped forward. "My lord, the walls are too high. Even siege towers cannot reach them." Cyrus smiled. "Then we will not climb the walls. We will walk under them." He turned toward the Euphrates River, flowing strong and deep. "The river that feeds Babylon will also betray it." That night, under the cover of darkness, the Persians began to divert the river. Thousands of soldiers dug canals with their bare hands, guiding the water into dry channels and old lakebeds. Slowly, the mighty Euphrates began to sink. Inside Babylon, the people partied still, unaware that their lifeline was disappearing. By midnight, the river that ran through the city had dropped low enough for soldiers to march through its bed. Silent as shadows, Gobryas led his men along the muddy path. The moon hid behind clouds, not a torch was lit. When they reached the river gates, they found them unguarded. The guards were drunk from the festival. The gates that could have saved the city were left open. The Persians entered Babylon without a fight. They split into groups, one toward the palace, one toward the temple, one toward the city square. The streets were filled with laughter and music, unaware of the doom creeping in the dark. At the palace, Belshazzar still sat trembling before the writing on the wall. The doors burst open, Persian soldiers stormed in. He rose, shouting, "Who dares enter Babylon?" A soldier struck him down. Before dawn, Cyrus's army controlled the city. The unthinkable had happened. Babylon had fallen in a single night. At sunrise, the people woke to silence. Smoke drifted over the temples. The golden statue of Marduk stood cracked and dark. Cyrus entered the city on horseback, greeted not by cheers but by awe. He looked up at the walls, now meaningless, and whispered, "The gods did not fall. Pride did." The sun rose over Babylon for the first time under a new master. The once proud city lay silent, not from destruction, but from disbelief. The walls still stood tall, the temples untouched, but the spirit of Babylon had been broken. Cyrus the Great entered through the Ishtar Gate, not as a destroyer, but as a liberator. His army marched behind him in perfect order, banners fluttering, trumpets silent. The streets, once filled with pride and arrogance, now echoed only with the shuffle of feet and whispers. Old Asherah, a market woman, stood by her ruined stall, watching. "Is this the end?" she murmured. "Or just another beginning?" Cyrus dismounted near the great statue of Marduk, Babylon's chief god. The high priest Nabonidus, trembling but dignified, stepped forward, robes still smelling of incense. "Mighty king," he said, bowing, "Marduk has chosen you. The god himself has abandoned Nabonidus and guided you to restore his temple." Cyrus looked upon the man with calm eyes. "I seek no quarrel with your god," he said. "Let every people worship as they will. I conquer kings, not faiths." The priest bowed deeper, relief in his face, perhaps the first sign of peace in years. Behind Cyrus, his general Gobrias reported, "The palace is secured. The king's son is dead. The gates are under our command." Cyrus nodded. "There will be no slaughter. No fires. Babylon will stand. Its pride has fallen, and that is enough." He walked slowly toward the temple steps, placing a hand on the ancient stone. "Let this city remember," he whispered, "that no empire stands forever, not even mine." The people watched from rooftops and windows. Some wept in silence. Others cheered weakly, thankful that the bloodshed had not come. That night, torches flickered in the wind. The Persians brought order where chaos might have ruled. They distributed grain, reopened the wells, and left offerings at the temple, a gesture of peace. In the quiet of the inner sanctuary, the high priest Nabonidus stood before the idol of Marduk once more. "You have saved your city," he prayed. "Or has another god done so?" From the shadows, the old scholar Belshazzar, Daniel, appeared once again, face calm, eyes filled with sorrow. "The Lord gave Babylon into the hands of Cyrus," he said softly. "Not to destroy it, but to free the captives." The priest frowned. "Free them? The Hebrews?" "Yes," said Daniel. "For 70 years they have waited. Now their time has come." Outside, the winds of the desert howled. Babylon's story was changing forever. The smoke of burnt offerings still drifted in the air, but the crowds were gone. The priests moved slowly, whispering prayers that no longer seemed to rise beyond the stone walls. High priest Nabonidus knelt before the golden statue of Marduk, voice breaking. "We gave you everything," he cried. "Gold, incense, blood. Why did you abandon us?" But the idol stood silent, its jeweled eyes reflecting only the flicker of dying torches. In another part of the city, Daniel walked through the ruins of the royal palace with a scroll in his hand. His hair had turned white, his back slightly bent, but his spirit was strong. He stopped before a young Persian scribe, Artaphornes, who was recording the new royal decrees. "The king has ordered freedom for the Hebrew captives," said the scribe. "He calls it the Edict of Cyrus." Daniel smiled faintly. "Then prophecy is fulfilled. Babylon has fallen, but faith has risen." Meanwhile, at the palace balcony, Cyrus the Great looked out over the city. He spoke to his commanders. "Write this in every record: Babylon shall not be destroyed. Its temple shall stand, but its throne shall never rise again." Gobrias bowed. "And the priests, my lord?" "They may pray," said Cyrus, "but their gods will not answer." Later that night, the high priest met Daniel one last time near the river, now calm again after the Persians restored its flow. The two old men stood in silence, watching the water reflect the stars. "Your God has power," the priest admitted. Ours remained silent. Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder. "The silence of your gods was the beginning of truth. The Lord does not dwell in gold or stone. He dwells in justice." Nabonidus nodded slowly. Perhaps Babylon's fall was not punishment, but awakening. The two men parted as dawn approached. The first light touched the walls of the once mighty city, now humbled, yet alive. The prophecy had come to pass. Babylon, the city that defied gods, had been judged not by fire, but by destiny. Weeks passed after Babylon's fall. The city slowly adjusted to peace. The Persians rebuilt roads, reopened temples, and declared freedom across the empire. But among the thousands within the city, one group wept for joy: the Hebrew captives. For 70 years, they had lived as slaves and exiles. Their songs of Zion had become whispers of longing. But now news spread through the markets and alleys like wildfire. Cyrus has issued a decree: the children of Israel are free. In the royal court, Cyrus the Great stood with the scribe Artaphornes, dictating the edict that would echo through history. Thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, "The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth. And he has charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem. Whoever is among his people, let him go up." Daniel bowed deeply before the king. "May your throne be blessed, O king," he said softly. "You have done what even Babylon dared not, you have freed the truth." Cyrus nodded. "The world is built not by chains, but by faith. Go and rebuild your temple." Outside the palace, crowds gathered as families prepared for the long journey home. Ezra, a young scribe inspired by Daniel's faith, carried a rolled parchment of sacred texts. "We will rebuild," he said to his people. "We will rise again." Old Asherah, the Babylonian woman who had watched the Persians march in, came to bid farewell to her Hebrew neighbors. "You are blessed," she said kindly. "May your God keep you safe." Daniel smiled. "And may yours find peace." As caravans of men, women, and children began their exodus toward Jerusalem, the city's streets filled with tears and song. The air carried a strange mix of sorrow and joy. Babylon had fallen, but faith had risen stronger than any wall. From the palace balcony, Cyrus watched the departing exiles. "History," he murmured, "is written not by the conquerors, but by those who carry faith through fire." And in that moment, the fall of Babylon became the beginning of something far greater: the rebirth of a people once lost. Years passed. The once mighty city of Babylon began to fade, not by war, but by time. The gardens dried. The palaces crumbled. Merchants left for new trade routes under Persian rule. Babylon, the gate of the gods, became a gate to memory. Old Asherah still lived near the marketplace, her hair now silver, her steps slow. She sat on a broken column each morning, feeding birds that fluttered where soldiers once marched. Beside her, the high priest Nabusharduser came often, robes faded, voice weaker than before. "The gods are silent," he said one morning. "The temple is empty. Even the offerings go untouched." Asherah smiled sadly. "Maybe the gods have left because we no longer listen." The priest sighed. "Or because we believed too much in our own greatness." Above them, the towers of Babylon shimmered in the heat, still beautiful, still proud, but hollow. The once mighty river that betrayed them now ran quietly through dry canals. A Persian official, Tissaphernes, rode past with soldiers. "Keep the peace," he ordered. "Babylon must remain loyal." But his words echoed through empty streets. There was no rebellion left, only ghosts. That night, Asherah sat by her window watching the moon rise over the ruins. She heard faint voices, travelers singing in Hebrew from distant lands. Their words reached her heart like a forgotten dream. "If I forget you, O Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its skill." She closed her eyes and whispered, "And if we forget Babylon, may history forget us." Far away, in the hills of Judah, Ezra unrolled sacred scrolls and began writing the story of his people's return, a story that began not with triumph, but with Babylon's fall. In that quiet, the world had changed forever. Empires rise and vanish, but truth remains stronger than walls, older than kings. Babylon, the city that once defied the gods, now lay in silence, a monument to human pride and divine justice. Years rolled into decades. The once mighty Babylon now lived under Persian rule, a proud shadow of its former self. But its name, its legend, still carried weight across the known world. Merchants still spoke of its hanging gardens, poets of its golden temples, and kings of its arrogance and fall. Cyrus the Great, now older and weary, often visited the city he had conquered without bloodshed. He would walk through its massive gates, now patrolled by Persian guards, and pause before the temple of Marduk. Inside, the old priest Nabonidus still served faithfully, though fewer came to pray. When Cyrus entered, the priest bowed deeply. "Great king, Marduk remembers your mercy." Cyrus smiled faintly. "And yet he is silent still." The priest nodded. "Perhaps the gods grow quiet when men grow wise." Cyrus looked around the empty temple, the cracked walls, the fading gold, the dust gathering on idols once worshipped by thousands. He said softly, "Power fades. Glory turns to dust. Only truth endures." Later, Cyrus stood with his son Cambyses, gazing from the city walls at the endless horizon. "Remember this, my son," he said. "Empires do not fall by swords alone. They fall when they forget humility." Cambyses frowned. "And Babylon?" "Babylon fell the day it believed itself divine," Cyrus replied. His advisor Darius, a sharp-minded noble, spoke quietly, "Then may Persia never forget this lesson." Cyrus nodded, looking once more at the sleeping city. "Babylon is no longer a kingdom. It is a warning." That night, the king left Babylon for the last time. Within a few years, Cyrus would fall in battle, and the empire would pass to new hands, but the story of Babylon's fall would remain, retold in every royal court and sacred hall. The city that once defied the gods had become a mirror for all who sought to rule the world. 2 centuries later, the desert wind carried a new banner, the banner of Greece. When Alexander the Great marched into Babylon in 331 BCE, he found no enemies waiting. The gates were open, the streets lined with curious faces, and the air heavy with memory. The Persian Empire had ruled and fallen. Now Babylon awaited yet another master. Alexander entered the city not as a destroyer, but in awe. "Is this truly Babylon?" he asked his companion Hephaestion. The friend smiled. "The city of gods and ghosts, my king." They passed through streets where weeds grew between broken stones. The once mighty temples now stood half-buried, their carvings worn smooth by time. An old scholar, Ishkur, approached carrying clay tablets. "Welcome, conqueror of the world," he said. "You walk the same stones where kings once claimed to be divine." Alexander dismounted. "And what became of them?" "They are dust beneath your feet," said the old man. The words lingered in the air, not insult, but truth. Alexander looked around, eyes filled with both pride and sadness. "Then I will rebuild Babylon," he declared. "I will make it shine again, the heart of my empire." And he did. For a while, the city came alive again. Soldiers from Greece and Persia mixed, markets reopened. Scholars studied the old tablets of astronomy and law. But destiny had other plans. One night, Alexander fell ill while planning a grand sacrifice to Marduk, the old Babylonian god. Fever consumed him, and the doctors whispered helplessly. He turned to Hephaestion, voice weak. "Did I defy the gods as Babylon once did?" His friend gripped his hand. "No, my king, you joined them." Alexander smiled faintly. "Then Babylon still lives in us all." Days later, he died in the same palace where the writing on the wall had once glowed centuries before. Outside, sandstorms swept through the ruins again. The scholar Ishkur looked up at the fading city and whispered, "Empire's end, but Babylon. Babylon never dies. It becomes legend." Centuries passed. Empires rose and fell like waves on the desert, the Greeks, the Parthians, the Romans. But Babylon, once the queen of cities, became nothing more than a whisper carried by the wind. The Euphrates still flowed, but its course had shifted. The gardens of the Hanging Palace were now sand dunes. The towers of Marduk lay buried beneath layers of dust and time. Only a few mud-brick houses remained, where shepherds and travelers rested. An old man named Ishkur, descendant of Babylon's last scholars, still lived among the ruins. His beard was white, his eyes dim, but he still traced the faded carvings on fallen walls with trembling fingers. One evening, a young nomad boy, Aru, approached him. Old man, he asked, was this truly the city of kings? Ishkor smiled faintly. Yes. Once, gods walked here, or so they believed. The boy looked around the endless ruins. And where are they now? The old man gazed at the horizon where the sun bled into sand. Buried with the pride of men. Nearby, a Persian merchant stopped with his caravan. We pass through here each year, he said. The locals call it Babylon, the city of ghosts. They say no one dares sleep within its walls. They hear voices at night. Ishkor chuckled softly. Perhaps it is not ghosts, but memories. As darkness fell, the stars appeared, the same stars the priests once worshipped. Ishkor looked up and whispered, "Time has conquered what no army could." The wind howled through the broken gates like a chorus of forgotten kings. Sand crept into every crevice, burying the last traces of the world's first empire. By dawn, the old man was gone, his footprints already covered by dust. Only the ruins remained, silent and endless. The year is 2025. The sun burns over the Iraqi desert, where sand covers centuries of silence. A convoy of archaeologists arrives at the ruins once called Babylon, the cradle of civilization. Dr. Alara Stone, dust-covered and sunburned, kneels beside a fragment of a clay tablet. Her eyes widen as she reads the faded inscription. Emiani, Tekel, Parson. She whispers the same words, the same warning. Her guide Karim looks puzzled. You mean the writing on the wall? Alara nods. Yes, the message that ended an empire. She stands, brushing dust from her gloves, and looks around, the broken ziggurats, the eroded gate, the remnants of a city that once claimed immortality. Karim says softly, "Strange, isn't it? For all their power, they left behind only stones." Alara smiles sadly. No empire lasts forever, only the lessons do. She turns toward the horizon as wind sweeps across the ruins, carrying whispers, the faint echo of ancient drums, voices chanting in forgotten tongues, and the deep silence that follows pride. As she walks away, the camera pans up over the endless desert, the shadowed outlines of Babylon beneath the sand, and the blazing sun above, eternal witness to the rise and fall of man.